Okay, let's get started. Hello, everybody, and welcome to this month's episode of The Country Air with Regional Arts New South Wales. Before we do anything else, I would like to acknowledge that all of us, wherever we are, will be on country of First Nations people, land that was never ceded. And I would like to pay my respects to elders past and present. And so today we have our episode of free election chats. With Regional Arts New South Wales, as many of you know, we are the peak body for regional arts in New South Wales, the state body. And we have been doing these sessions really to get people talking about issues, about things that affect us in regional New South Wales. So welcome to everybody that's come along to this session. Before we go any further, just for anybody that doesn't have any vision, I'll give you a quick audio description of myself. I'm a middle-aged white woman with greyish whitish hair with blonde bits in it. I am wearing a navy blue dress with white and red flowers, and I'm sitting in an office with a poster behind me. I also would like to introduce you to Julia, our admin and projects assistant, who's managing the chat box and admitting people and things like that today. And with that chat box, could I really encourage anybody to put questions in as you go, because the whole idea of doing sessions live is it gives you an opportunity to put questions in via that chat box as well. So let's get on with the job of talking to our Shadow Minister, John Graham. I'm just going to quickly read out the bio for John Graham. The Honourable John Graham, New South Wales Shadow Minister for the Arts. John Graham is Deputy Leader of the Opposition in the Legislative Council, Shadow Minister for Arts, Music and the Nighttime Economy, Shadow Minister for Roads, Shadow Special Minister of State and Shadow Minister for the North Coast. He was elected to serve the people of New South Wales in the Legislative Council in 2016. Welcome to you, John Graham. John, I would like to just start off maybe asking you to do a little audio description of yourself so that people who don't have vision may know what you look like.
Very good. Thanks, Tracy, and thanks for having me on. I'm a white middle-aged man in a white shirt and a blue suit jacket. I'm sitting in the Parliament in one of the offices on the ground level. I'm looking out on an ocean of scaffolding in front of me as the Parliament's being renovated at the moment.
Thank you for that. So the background for today, the New South Wales state election is looming. What does the arts in regional New South Wales most need right now and into the future, and which government is best to deliver this? In this The Country Air one-on-one 30-minute special with the Honourable John Graham, New South Wales Shadow Minister for the Arts, we'll facilitate questions that you've been burning to ask. Why should I vote for you? I will say just before we start, we're not out to really try and catch the minister out. We're much more interested in understanding and getting a feel for what we might get if we do have a change of government. I'd also like to stress that this opportunity has also been extended to Ben Franklin, the Minister for the Arts and a member of the National Party. And he hasn't given us a yes or no yet, but watch this space, we may well be doing that. I'd also like to say up front that we have been contacted by the Greens for questions about what they should have in their policy on the arts. So from a Regional Arts New South Wales perspective, we're not trying to take sides in any way. Politically, we're trying to bring it to you so that you can make your decisions. So let's start off with your first question. As the Shadow Minister for the Arts, what do you see as the most pressing issues facing the arts and cultural sector in regional New South Wales?
Right, thanks, Tracy, and thanks again for having me on. I'll also acknowledge that I'm coming to you from Gadigal land and pay respect to elders past and present. I do want to refer up front to one of the announcements that I've been most proud of in this election already, which was one of the early announcements that if we're successful in forming government in just under 3 weeks' time, we'll begin the process of moving towards treaty in New South Wales, which would be a really important step for New South Wales. We're the last state to commence that process. It wouldn't be quick, but especially given the importance of First Nations music and culture, to be so important that if we could begin that journey. When it comes to the priorities in the arts and cultural sector in regional New South Wales, look, I really feel like, as is the case elsewhere, the real recognition of the importance of this sector is something that really needs to be brought much more to the fore. Having seen what's happened nationally with the National Cultural Policy and the reaction that's got both from the sector, but also from the public, as the government's really stepped forward to say this is a really important sector. It should be central to the stories we tell about our country. That's, I think, the most pressing thing for the sector overall. That's especially important in regional communities to tell some of those regional stories, especially as newspapers and regional media disappear, come under more and more pressure. I think the regional arts sector has got an incredibly important role to play in telling those stories right across New South Wales.
Thank you. So in your view, what is working and what's not working in the arts and the cultural sector in regional New South Wales, and maybe even why?
Yeah, look, I think there is a sense that this isn't a big enough part of the story in regional New South Wales, and I'd like to see it, that emphasised. I've, in my travels, noting I've been in the broader arts portfolio a relatively short time. It's been about 4 months, so I've been the music and nighttime shadow now for quite some time, for a number of years, but I've only recently stepped up into the broader arts portfolio. So that's meant dealing with this beautifully diverse sector, including in regional New South Wales. The thing that struck me is really the huge appetite in regional areas for this to be just more central to the towns and cities of regional New South Wales. In some ways, that wasn't a surprise to me. I grew up in regional New South Wales. I've lived in a few places, including in the Blue Mountains, but then I grew up in Albury and in Newcastle, and that's been, so I know how important some of the arts and culture sector is in regional New South Wales. I saw it for myself as the son of two arts-loving parents from regional New South Wales. Mum more interested in books and theatre, and Dad a bit more interested in the visual arts. He ended up becoming a guide at the Newcastle Art Gallery late in life. So I know how important this is to regional communities, but as I've travelled around, really the level of enthusiasm, the network of the arts community across New South Wales, and the extent to which there's a dialogue across regional New South Wales, I think has been a bit of a surprise to me, just how quickly the word spreads, which I think is a real strength. But above all, just the appetite to see this develop has been really, really encouraging. I'm still getting my head around how best to back that. We're looking at the sort of consultation that happened as the federal government came to power, and really weighing up whether we would do something similar. I'm inclined to, based on how well that consultation went federally. I certainly don't want to consult for consultation's sake. I know how stretched everyone is. That's true after the last couple of years. It's even more true in regional New South Wales. So I don't want to ask a question about where the sector should go just for the sake of doing it. But if people are up for a serious, deep, but short consultation about the direction of arts generally, including the direction of arts in regional New South Wales, and what that direction should be, that's certainly what we would like to do, starting almost immediately after the election if we're successful. And I say that having seen how the sector responded to the National Cultural Policy consultation. Also, having seen how quickly that was able to move through, for me, that was a bit of a surprise how quickly they were able to move that through. But also, as the incoming arts shadow, I've, even with the engagement I've had in the sector, I've pulled open the drawer to look at what is the arts strategy for New South Wales. And there is not an explicit arts strategy for New South Wales. I found that quite surprising as an incoming Shadow Minister. To me, that's the first thing we should have for people to agree or disagree about. And I'm sure there'd be, I don't need to tell you, there'd be some lively debates about what that is in this sector. There are a diverse range of views, but we need a strategy so that people can agree or disagree, but ultimately coordinate with that. So I would see that as one of the first steps we'd take, although I'm interested in people's view about whether they'd find that valuable, but with a particular focus on what are the needs in regional New South Wales, what can we do to help there?
Yes, and I think the chat box, anybody who wants to put an opinion in about that, please feel free to use our chat box. And I think it is interesting what's happened federally, because there had been no policy for a while, for so long, really. But even in state, it's a long time since the last policy was written, and I think, things have changed so much in that time. It's a constantly moving space. You've answered some of this in relation to policy, but if I was to vote for you, what could I expect to improve in the arts and cultural sector?
Yeah, so a couple of things would come into focus here. We've announced a shift in the policy framework. As I've said, look, there really isn't a formal arts policy in New South Wales, but if you had to caricature it, if you're a cartoonist out drawing the arts policy in New South Wales, it'd be a very traditional arts policy focused around the major arts institutions, all of whom are really within 500 metres of where I'm sitting here in Parliament House. A real focus on those, quite a traditional focus. I do want to pay credit to the government for the capital investment that they've put into those institutions. It's been supported by the opposition, and I think I want to pay tribute to Ben Franklin and Don Harlan, both of whom have been enthusiastic advocates for that. In my view, though, that's not enough of a strategy to be able to really see arts and culture thrive in New South Wales. We've got to invest in our people. I know how stretched they are. The truth is most of that investment has fallen within 500 metres of where I am now. It hasn't lifted arts and culture across the state. And I'd like to see a broader focus for how we're engaging with the sector. Our priorities would be investing more broadly, investing in our people, but a shift from that traditional arts policy focus to a broader creative industries focus. Looking not just at that traditional arts sector, which is incredibly important, and I would certainly defend and support that. We want to see excellence in that sector, but we'd also like to see a broader focus on the visual arts and performance, on literature and print media, on broadcast and digital media, on arts education, on libraries and archives, museums, screen, fashion, music, architecture and design, even extending as far as technology. That's the sort of focus we've seen in Victoria from a policy point of view. When I look at Victoria, I think that's been quite successful. That's for a couple of reasons, but in part it allows a bigger discussion, more support from government, not just support from the arts agency itself, but also from a range of the other departments in government. So that's the key policy shift we've announced. Obviously, it's something we'd be really keen to talk through with the sector. How that happens, how fast it happens, the way that unfolds is very much up for discussion and debate with the arts sector, but it is the direction we'd like to head down. I see that as being very good for regional arts and culture, because at the moment with that traditional focus, so much of the action is right here in the centre of Sydney.
Oh, there is so much in that answer to unpick there. Thank you for that. I just would like to comment too, as those of us that have worked in regional arts, as I have for a long time now, I think we all take that approach of working right across all of those areas. So hearing that come from government, very interested too to see how you join that up across government, because at the moment it's almost like creative industries development has sat in a different place to arts development, as if they're two different things, but really I don't see them as two different things. I see them as a spectrum, and there may be polar ends on that spectrum, but there's a lot of movement in between. So from a government perspective, would love to see how it all joins up.
Yeah, and just jumping in briefly on that, I mean, in my view, that's the experience people working in the sector have, moving between these institutions. That's actually how the sector's working on the ground. It's not how government policy has approached it. So I'd like to see a government policy which is much more aligned with what I've seen people living as practitioners or policy people or arts members of the arts community on the ground.
Picking up on one very small part of the creative industries, you've already been doing a lot of work in the music industry, and clearly have a bit of an interest in the music. So can I just pick up for a moment on the music? I come from a music background myself. I am a musician, and have a lot of people in the family that are also professional musicians. So I was just wondering, what is your interest in music? What do you like in music, and what do you think music development could mean for regional New South Wales?
Yeah, that's definitely how I've ended up in the Arts Shadow. I came into Parliament as someone who was a music fan. I rushed to stress I'm not very musical. I was big on the school recorder, but not really since then. But I was a music fan who was worried about losing venues in New South Wales. It turns out we've lost more than half the music venues we've had in New South Wales over the life of this government. That crisis is for a range of reasons, but it's been right across the state. But I came in as a music fan, worried about losing venues, and took an interest in that area and ended up working quite closely with the music part of the sector to tackle the complex regulatory reasons why that was happening, some of the economic pressures that have put pressures on grassroots art spaces right across the state. And then that's led to me becoming the Arts Shadow as well. I do see it as directly translatable in some ways. The same pressures that have closed music venues have made grassroots art spaces often close their doors or not be able to continue. And the same economic pressures on the music sector also weighing heavily on the grassroots art sector. So I think there's I would certainly see that as being translatable. And one of the things we've already announced in the campaign is we would strongly use the planning powers of government to really protect existing art spaces and open new art spaces where there's new developments. I see that as fundamental to really bringing the arts sector back into the centre of the towns and cities right across New South Wales.
I'm going to be a bit naughty and ask something that we didn't really prepare, but you kind of already alluded to this. You've said that the people are really important in the arts. So while we're, on the one hand, we are talking about venues, whether they be music venues or other arts venues, or I can see Alice is on here who might be looking at a big top for Spaghetti Circus or something like that. So the venues are always really important, but how do we make sure we get that balance between making sure we do venue support, but we really make sure that our people are supported, because venues don't work in the arts unless they've got people working in them. Yeah,
exactly right. It's been such a tough couple of years. That really, as I've moved around, this is an optimistic sector. You've got to be optimistic to devote your life to arts and culture, but people are so under pressure. So we need to support that. In some ways, I see that creative industries discussion as a part of that. That's why we have to have the bigger argument about the fact that, look, 9% of the economy, when you look at those sectors I ran through, are in these creative economy sectors. It's so important to this quite diverse economy we've got in New South Wales. It's why government should be paying much more attention, not just to the venues and the economic part of that, but to the people who work in those sectors, the pressure they're under, and its policies as diverse as education, or especially housing policies or planning policies that really make a difference to people's ability to do that, not just for 1 year, but for 5 years or 10 years, which people would love to do. But the truth is it's really hard to do that given the economic and cost of living pressures people are under.
So why the arts? What makes the arts important, and how will you prioritise the arts and culture sector?
Yeah, look, it's in any society, we've got to deal with the economic basics first, but really the arts is so important to why people live, or to every great society. I was a bit influenced by the period I briefly spent working for the BT government up in Queensland to see a very different arts discussion up in Queensland after the Bjelke-Petersen era. The BT government was much more upfront about what they saw the role of the arts was. They really presented it as just fundamental to the importance of ideas. And Peter was a real advocate for why the arts should be central as a result to what the agenda was they were pursuing up in Queensland. I found that really refreshing, having grown up in a New South Wales discussion about arts and culture. It was much more of a discussion about art for art's sake and the importance of the arts sector to bringing challenging ideas into society. So they're some of the reasons why this is important to me. But again, in a diverse sector like this, I know there's 100 different opinions on why that's the case, but that's some of the experiences I guess I bring to why I've ended up in this role.
I think at this stage, Julia, we might turn to you, because I can see that there's quite a lot of comments coming in on the chat box, and to pick up on some of the issues that are coming from our audience today.
Yeah, we have 2 comments from the Riverina area. We have Tim Fur from East Riverina saying that he would like to see how a state cultural policy that responds to and amplify the work in national space, and that is more about more than infrastructure, and creative industries most focus most welcome. Love that you mentioned that art education as well. The collapse of tertiary training in recent years, very concerning. And on the other side, we also have a comment from Western Riverina that is new digital arts and future art technologies are particularly needed in Western Riverina and New South Wales generally, regional and remote areas. This can support all art medias. I think that this is a starting point for another discussion.
And I see Margie from has just picked up on something this morning about in the performing arts, particularly in the theatre, that there's such a pressing need at the moment for just skill shortages. So interesting there. John, I wondered if you've got any comments on either those creative industries and technology emphases that are coming from the Riverina area, or maybe picking up on Margie's concern about the skill shortages that the performing arts are experiencing so badly at the moment.
Yeah, well, I think that's a great contrast between the pressure at the moment and the potential of this sector. I think I'm really having the skills issue raised with me wherever I go, and we have to look at what we can do to really make sure this is sustainable. That's really probably the strongest view I've had put to me from within the sector. We need the people working here to be able to keep doing this, and that really means training, skills, support, funding are all pretty crucial parts of dealing with right where we are now. But then I think the discussion about creativity and technology wherever you live in New South Wales is really part of the exciting potential of the sector. We've all learnt so much, even the fact we're having this discussion the way we are now, we've learnt so much about the potential of technology. The chance to use that in this sector is incredibly exciting. Creativity, I gave a speech before Christmas about the need for this policy shift to creative industries. And one of the arguments I was making was that this is about the jobs of the future. One of the reasons we should do it is because these will be the jobs that are hardest to for the robots to take over. Doing creativity is fundamentally human, although one of the people on the panel had some very disturbing news about just how quickly artificial intelligence, the robots, might impact on the creative sector as well, including even on the pottery sector, which news I found very confronting. But yeah, look, I think there's massive potential here. We've all learned so much about the impact of technology and its ability to allow us to communicate, including in this sector, so much better. So wherever you live, the potential here feels massive.
Do you think, I mean, we have come through a very difficult time for everybody, but the arts was very, very badly affected. But regional New South Wales is in such a strange position at the moment that we've had so many negatives thrown at us, you know, not least of all of which is the disasters that are coming on the in the natural world, and yet at the same time it feels like there's such opportunity in regional New South Wales at the moment, and the arts and having creative communities is going to be such an opportunity for us regionally. Do you think there's an opportunity maybe for regional New South Wales to take a very different place within the whole area of the arts?
I think if you think back about the last couple of years, I think part of the clue about what the future might bring is just how important the arts and cultural sectors have been to everyone getting through those couple of years, whether that's natural disasters or COVID. The arts and cultural sector has often been part of the glue to really get people through. And the word you used that I think is probably the most important is community. For me, these arts and culture sectors are such strong communities, and it's really why we want to move the focus from the key institutions, so important. I don't want to diminish their importance for a second, but actually the focus solely on them is a real distraction from the arts community more generally. And that's our real strength, finding a way to back in those people, those institutions, so important across regional communities as well. That's really the arts ecosystem that I'd like to find a way to back with this policy shift, with a whole of government focus, not just having Create at the table, but really thinking about how we can back that right across New South Wales.
So let's turn to leadership. Why is leadership in the arts important, and who do you think is doing a good job of leading in the arts?
I think it's, well, firstly, I think government does have a crucial role to defend the sector. I think the creative sector should go off and be creative, and I think I do see the role as the Arts Minister or Shadow Minister to defend the sector, and I've seen Ben Franklin do that. I think that's one of the reasons I think he's done a good job in that role for the sector. But I have seen a whole range of sector leaders right across New South Wales playing a real role in their communities, and I'd like to find a way to back those people. I've seen how important that is. So it is such a diverse sector, I'd really like to, to keep working in the way I've been able to work with the music sector to help bring some of those people together and help them find a way to advocate to government about the importance of this quite remarkable sector.
So a very quick last question. Tell us about bipartisanship in New South Wales. We know bipartisanship support is critical. So do you and Ben Franklin have coffee on a regular basis, and could you?
Yeah, look, there is a real role for bipartisanship here. There are some things we should agree on, including the importance of the arts and culture sector. So Ben and I have both been involved in the Parliamentary Friends of Music, as an example, advocating for the importance of music. That is crucial to bring support to the sector across the political spectrum. I'm also unapologetic about arguing the case that Labor's placed a very high importance on the role of the arts, both from Whitlam onwards federally, but also from Joe Carl onwards in New South Wales, building the Opera House, the importance of creating many of the art spaces that we've had. What I'd like to bring, if we are elected, is the same focus on arts and culture that Anthony as Prime Minister and Tony Burke as Arts Minister have brought federally. I'd like to bring some of that energy, effort and enthusiasm to a state cultural policy and a state cultural engagement that we've seen at that national level.
Thank you. I'm just reading comments coming here in from Alice Caldwell up at, in the Northern Rivers area from Spaghetti Circus. And she just raises things like potential to super boost the area of cultural tourism, changes needed for regional touring, and the idea that we can change the models, that it isn't always about a metropolitan-based touring model where it all comes from there, that we've got things happening in the regions that can tour as well. So we're really looking at opportunities to maybe rethink the way things can work in regional arts. I think, thank you today for all your comments, your insights, and the fact that I think we've actually had some answers today that have given us a much deeper understanding of where you're positioned. It hasn't all been waffle talk. It has been things where we understand now from a political perspective the sort of things that if you were to become the Arts Minister, that we would have some sense of what we're going to get, but also the sense that maybe we can have some input into that along the way.
No, thank you very much.
Thank you again for coming along and being part of the Country Air for Regional Arts New South Wales. Thank you to everybody for coming today, for your comments and questions as we go, and I look forward to seeing you again.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.